going to put another line over here for the tops of the eyes, just to kind of think where I am. So I'm just kind of looking back and forth between my photograph and my picture just to see if everything is balanced and kind of gauging the length. And I can adjust this as I go along. So far it's okay. I'm going to put a little line for the top of the nose, and then the bottom of the nose was there. Okay, and then just going to straighten out the sides of this. To give it that shape, and then actually the cheekbones follow my circle line, so I'm just going to make those a little bit stronger over there. My lines are broken and I'm not doing one long line, because when I do that I know I'm going to go wrong. So because it's symmetrical, it's good to do little bits and then change your hand position and do the other side so that you've got everything balanced. And also changes, like I'm putting my cheekbone, that's underneath the eye socket, I'm putting it there, but I'm not quite sure if that's going to be the right spot. Okay, well, I'm just going to go for a nose shape over here, and again, not too much of anything because we've got to make sure it all balances out. Okay, so these are the tops of the jaw, so I'm actually going to carry on and see if I can put everything in. It may not be correct, yours may not be correct, so don't press too hard, but it's just good when you've got everything in, you can kind of see how everything else is going. So over here, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. So it's these holes over here. I'm looking at the shapes of the holes, because that will be more or easier to guess, or to gauge, sorry, than the bone around it. So I'm just going to have a look at those. And this one is basically a longish triangle, and then the other one has something behind it. It's still kind of a longish triangle with a bit of a bend in it, and then we see the back of the skull behind it. Okay, and when I'm stopping and not drawing, it's because I'm just checking to see how everything looks. Alright, so the top of the teeth seem to follow, well, maybe a little bit under the circle that I drew. So that would be the top of the teeth, and the middle of the teeth is somewhere here, the bottom of the teeth are there somewhere, and then this line kind of follows that to the bottom of the teeth, and then this line follows that to the bottom of the teeth. And you've got teeth that are flat across the front like that, and then teeth that go towards the back. So I'm just going to indicate that so we get a slight three-dimensionality. And that's actually quite helpful, because I just noticed there's a line that comes down there and down the chin. And these lines inside an object are quite helpful, because just doing the outline is always a little confusing. Alright, so eraser. I had one. Alright, I will look for that in a second. Okay, so I was looking for my eraser but couldn't find it right then. So I'm just now thinking about how long the chin is. So the bottom of the nose could actually come down a little bit. And then from here to the top of the teeth, so from there to there, is a little bit shorter than from there to there. So that's one thing. And then the teeth, well, the teeth are a little bit shorter than that. So I'm going to think about that, which is roughly to there. So my chin is probably going to come to about there. So I'm just going to put a straight line over. I'm not worrying about the curviness just yet. I just want to get it to look in proportion. Okay, and it's getting there. Alright, so I'm going to take a minute to have a look at it. Alright, if you are stuck or you need help, just let me know. I'm going to put the eye sockets in, I'm going to thin these out, and then I'm going to have a look at your drawing. So if you need help with anything, please let me know. Okay, so I think before I do these, I actually want to get these jaw cheekbones a little thinner and give him a little curve. So it instinctively you kind of know when to put details in, because you feel like if this wasn't working, then I wouldn't want to do the curves over here. I'd still be doing those angled straight lines. So you kind of follow your instinct. So right now it says I want to put a curve in, which means everything else is sort of working. Okay, actually, maybe that needs to go wider. Alright, that goes there. I'm just going to give it a little curl, put that there. Alright, so I am starting to make it slightly curvy over here because it's starting to look skull-like. Okay, so before I put the nose in, I just want to make sure it fits with the eyes. Okay, so whenever I'm doing a portrait, I actually always look for these little lines over here because it's the bridge of the nose, and on this side it's of the photograph it looks like there's lots of light, but on this side there's a definite edge because there's a shadow. And so these are very good because it shows you the width of the nose, and then you can kind of gauge where your eye's going to go and where it's going to end, you know, so these things are very good. So it's kind of interesting for me to see this in my skull. And when I put that down, then I can see how far I need to go over to start my eye socket. Okay, so what I saw, this was thick and this was thin, and it's in the shadow. We're going to go over that with shadow in a minute. Oh, and then this is too high. So what I guessed before is actually too high. It's actually coming down here, and I'm seeing where the edge of the nose is over here. So as this bends over, that's a little bit below where the eye socket is. Mine was a little low, so I need to just pick it up a bit. All right. And okay, so I'm thinking about width of the eye and then how wide my skull is. So my skull is a little wider than the one in the picture, so I've got to think, do I want to change it? Maybe I do, actually. You know, you have a choice. Your picture, you're not slave to your reference picture. It is actually slave, well, not slave, it's your servant. So don't try and make things like the picture just because you feel you should. Think about what your drawing looks like, and do you like it, even though it may not look like the picture. And that was the choice I was making, and I decided I actually wanted it to look thinner. An elegant skull. Okay, so the top of the eye socket was kind of where I put the line, which is cool, so I'm pleased about that. It's sort of a little higher than my bridge of the nose, but that's okay. Okay, and then it sort of comes out over there. And then the other side, so I've got my bridge, which this is kind of a made-up line, but it helps me because then I know that from here to here is probably about the same from here to here, so that's good. I'm bringing it up to that line. I'm just putting a little marker over there so I can see where that's going. And yeah, this is slightly angled, but not, so I'm looking, well, so here I felt there was a big angle, but then I checked with this line to see, well, is there actually a big angle? I mean, because these kind of look the same, and this one is pretty much in line with the pictures, so maybe my angle was a illusion. Maybe it's actually just kind of a slight angle. Alright, and then this corner of the eye is lower down than this corner. In fact, this eye needs to do that too. And, okay. Alright, my skull is alright. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's good to start. So let me just put my recording on. Alright, okay, I'm just recording it again. Alright, so one of the things, so this is my only eraser at the moment. This is not brilliant. Erasers tend to disappear. Okay, so I just want to make this a little thicker, because I made it a little bit too thin. And then instead of my eraser, trying to find it will take an age, so I'm just going to shade my mistakes out as I go along. Okay, so that's fine. That'll work as we're going along. So I'm going to go back to my nose, And then I'll probably go out to the eyes, because as I'm doing the bridge of the nose, it kind of relates to the eye sockets, and then from there I'll go down to the mouth. So I just want to get the shape a little bit more accurate, so I'm going to zoom in to my skull. And just rounding off the top a little bit. It's got a bit of an angle over there, so I'm going to put that in. And then I'm just going to thin this side out a little bit, give it a bit of a bump. This is not a hugely complicated object, which means that I can focus on all the little details. So sometimes I'll leave out the actual details like little bumps and things, and then if it's something like this, which is a close-up image, it's kind of nice to put those in because they make it more interesting. So I'm really just going for a walk along the lines of the face. Down here it fades out a little bit because it's going into the teeth, so I'm going to stop my line over there, and you know what, I'm actually going to zoom in a bit because I think it's easier to see if I do that. Hang on, there we go. Alright. Okay, so I got down there, I'm going to come back, this is there, bring this across, round that out a bit. I just need to lift up my camera on the other side because, there we go. Okay, where am I? Here I am. Okay. Alright, so that's roughly the nose shape. I actually want to put a line down the middle. And from the bridge of the nose over here, I actually want to put a line down here because there's a light edge which is going to make the nose pop out, which is what you want because you don't want it to look flat. One of the reasons I chose this one is because there was nice shadow in it, so we can make it look nice and three-dimensional. Alright, so I'm going to shade in here. I'm going to shade the lightness of this little thing that points up here, because then we can take it from there and make it darker. So my first shading is just a light grey, and the reason I'm going side to side is because that's the most comfortable. So I'm just going to start off with that because there's no detail to put in just yet, it's just kind of colouring the whole area in shadow. Alright, so I'm going to do that, but then at the same time shadow doesn't really care where things end, so I'm going to bring that shadow down here as well and then fade it out just before it's about the size of the teeth. Well, maybe not, it's a little bit smaller than the teeth, but think about that as not having any shading just yet. We'll get back there, there's a little bit of shading, but that's kind of coming at the end. Okay, so now I've done that, what I'm going to do is look at the shapes inside the shadow. So there's, well, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I don't know what this is. There's a bump here, it seems to belong to the cheekbone as well as the nose. Well, there it is, so I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to put that there, and then on this side of the middle line I'm going to put another line. And you can do all this. So what I'm doing is I'm actually figuring out where the light parts are in the shadow, and then I'm going to shade darker around them. And you can do this with guesswork because it's kind of faded in there, but it's just easier to show you if I outline them not too dark and then I just shade around them, then it works. And because it's inside the shadow, you know, you don't want too much. In fact, what I've got here is probably a little bit too much definition, so you kind of want it to be a mysterious darkness. But once you've got everything down, then you can adjust it and change it. Okay, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit just to see how that looks. Okay, and then what I'm doing now is I'm actually looking back and forth between my drawing and the nose, and I'm trying to find the darkest dark. So it seems to be in the nostril area. So I'm just going to go over this. So I'm trying to change my pencil mark direction, just so I have a little bit of what's called cross-hatching. You've got one way and then another way crossing over each other, and the marks themselves, the little lines, are called hatches. And so when you're crossing them one over the other, it's called cross-hatching. And what happens sometimes when you've got it just going in one direction, it gets a little distracting. So I'm trying to change that. Although if going in the same direction is comfortable and it's not distracting, then you might as well go for that. Okay, so what I'm trying to do as I'm doing this, I'm going over the edges of those little bumps that I made and make them a little darker on the inside. And then what I'm doing is basically shaping the cave of that nose. And you can see it. It's a good idea to watch your picture and also look in the computer. I've told my students that before, but if you look at your image on the screen, it's like standing like a yard or two away from your picture. You can see it clearly. You can see what effects you're having, whether it's working or not. Alright, so I'm just building this up slowly for two reasons: because I want to be careful and because I really like it, and so I don't want to rush through. It's like eating an ice cream. You want to take your time and enjoy every bit. That's if you like ice cream. Alright, and then back up to the top, there's a little slight darkness. It's hard to see, but if you draw it and you put it in your picture, you know that it works pretty well. So having dark there and dark there, you get a feeling of depth. So even though you might not see it in your photograph, you know it's a useful thing to put in, and so you kind of half make it up. And then I need to go over that middle line a little bit more. So there's just a little more darkness in the center. Alright. Okay, alright, we still have time. Okay, so from there, because I've got depth over here, I want to move over here so that this little light area stands out. So when you have a light next to a dark, the part of the dark that's right next to the light is the darkest. So I'm going to now change the direction, because this is a slope going down that we're kind of looking across, like you're looking down a wall, like that painting that I showed you that would be hung on the stairs. You're actually looking at the painting like you were looking down there. So you're looking along the wall like you're right close up to the wall. So this is the same thing, and when you're looking at something like this, it's called foreshortening, and I find that if I do strokes kind of going down rather than across, it helps that feeling of it going into the distance. Yeah, I don't know if that was very clear. But, okay, so on this part, if you make long strokes going down like that, like it's going down the side of the nose, it's going to look like it's going back into the distance. And as we're doing that, I'm just going to zoom in again because it's a little clearer. Okay, so as I'm doing that, I'm making this edge just a little bit darker. Okay, and then I continue around here. So I've got to see, well, what is the shadow over here? Is it all the same? Is it lighter than this part? And what, because it's very easy to just carry on and then you realize, oops, that was meant to be a little bit lighter, or this, that, and the other. So I just have to check before I carry on. So looks like a little bit lighter, but not hugely. Okay, so I'm just following it around the bend, and at this point I'm actually going to go this way because it's a little bit more comfortable, but this part of the face is actually going up. This one was also going up. It's so narrow that it's much easier to do this, but this part you can actually change your mark directions. Okay, and then in a minute, because I forgot, I get into this and then I forget to look at your pictures. I need to look at your pictures. Okay, so at this point I'm just fading it out, because whereas this was a sharp edge over here, as you get over here it fades into the light. But over here, this darkness that was on the edge, this little extra dark patch, kind of comes up the side of the nose like that. Okay, alright, so at that point I'm going to have a look at your pictures again. Okay, where's my pencil? Okay, so I just wanted to get to the eye just a little bit, and we will carry on next week. Yeah, okay, so my nose is a little bit light, so Claire's, your darkness is probably perfect. Mine will probably end up like that, so it's not wrong. It's just that, yeah, I just left mine a little lighter just in case, because I've got this darkness over here and this over there, and there's darkness here, and I just want to make sure that they're kind of balanced with each other. All right, so I've got this down here. And then for the last, well, not even a minute, I'm just going to start working into the eye. So this is darker than that. So I put shade over here, but I want it to look light against this. So I'm just going to draw the edge of this. I'm doing a broken line because, well, for two reasons. I need to know that I'm going in the right direction. And then we also see actually a little bit on the inside. It's a hole, so you see a line here, but you see a little bit over there, and you see a little bit over here. So I don't want to make it look too flat. So if you have a broken line, it's kind of looking like it's not just on one edge. Like on the edge of the paper, you have like an edge. Like, okay, let me just move this over. The edge of the paper, if you have a line, it looks like that, like a flat thing. Whereas if you see my finger is three-dimensional, if you do the broken lines, you get much more of a sense of that 3D shape. So a single line makes it look like a piece of paper. And over here, we definitely don't have a piece of paper. It's a thick piece of skull that goes behind the eye socket. Okay, so I've done that. And then the second thing I'm going to do is bring my shading up to that line in the same way, so it's lots of lines, and so you don't actually end up with one line that flattens it out. You end up with an edge that's slightly blurry. And that's important. Edges are really quite important. How you do them really makes or breaks, to be conventional, the picture. But it depends on the picture you want. If you want to make a poster picture where you've got lots of dark outlines, then definitely they work, because that's all part of the design. Whereas this kind of thing, which is shading and getting it to look sculptural, just a single line doesn't work that well. Okay, so I'm going to stop in just a few seconds. I just want to show you this. So it's getting darker. I don't really have a line over there. Eventually, I actually am going to put, well, I'll do it right now. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker and a little bit crisper just over there. It's still not a line, it's just an edge. Have it blurry over here, and then maybe like down here I'd make an edge a little sharper again. So you have partly, you know, what am I saying? Like clear edges and partly blurry edges, and that also helps the shape. Okay, that is all I'm going to do for today. We will continue next week. So I am going to say goodbye, except would anybody like to show me their pictures before I go, or do you have any questions before I go? Okay, then I presume that's a no. Alright, I'm going to send you a copy of my picture. I'm going to take a picture and email it to you. If you feel like you want to show me yours, that would be great. I'd love to look at yours, and I can give you comments if you want them. So, Claire, it was really nice to meet you, and lovely to see your drawing, and everybody else, you did great. So I will see you next week. Alright, bye.
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 Bye.